Hey everyone, it's Legalens is here. In this video, I got the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra 5G. As you can see, this is the Hong Kong version of the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. It has 512GB of storage, 5G network, Snapdragon processor, and a dual SIM. But it has a minor damage on the display. You can see a white and pink line. And also, another problem is that this device doesn't have the 5G millimeter wave antenna. So in this video, I'm going to show you how do I modify the motherboard of the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. Make the motherboard has a full set of 5G modems inside. So first, let's power it off. And here is the other Galaxy Note 20 Ultra that I have. This is the Japanese version of the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. But the shutter sound can now be turned off because I am not in Japan. Because I'm currently outside Japan. So you can see here, I can adjust how loud the shutter sound of the camera using the volume while outside Japan and South Korea. If you have a Japanese phone and you bring it to South Korea, the shutter sound cannot be turned off. Same thing if you buy a phone from South Korea and bring it to Japan, the shutter sound cannot be turned off. This is the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, the Japanese version. It has 256GB of storage, 5G network, Snapdragon, but single SIM. It doesn't support Samsung's voice assistant. You can see no voice assistant from Samsung. But the Japanese version has the 5G millimeter wave antenna, just like the US version. Now let's make a part of the Hong Kong version of the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. I'll start heating up the back panel. As you can see here, this is what the Hong Kong version looks like. It doesn't have the 5G millimeter wave antenna. Let's take these both phones apart. You can see the difference now on the inside. This is the Hong Kong version of the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. You can see here, it has the 5G modems. It has extra 5G modems on the motherboard. But these three 5G modems, the US version doesn't have it. And there's another 5G modems on the top. You can see these black 5G modems here. The US version doesn't have it. But you can see the Hong Kong version, it doesn't have the socket for the 5G millimeter wave antenna. And you can see this is what the charger port looks like. Compared to the Japanese version, you can see here, the Hong Kong version has the extra 5G modems on the charging port. You can see the charger port has the extra 5G modems on the Hong Kong version. So the Hong Kong version has the extra 5G modems than the US, Korea, and Japanese version. But you can see the motherboard of the Japanese version, it doesn't have the extra 5G modems on the top, just like the South Korea version. But it has the modems. You can see the modem for the 5G millimeter wave antenna like this. The US version has it, and also on the bottom here, the modems for the 5G millimeter wave antenna. The US also has it, but the US version doesn't have these 3 extra 5G modems. Only Hong Kong and Japan version has it. Alright, so now let's take all of this apart. Now that both phones has been taken apart, let's observe these both motherboards. You can see this one doesn't have the 5G modems. You can see, but the US version and the Japanese version has the modems for the 5G millimeter wave antenna, but the Hong Kong version doesn't have the socket and the modems for the 5G millimeter wave antenna. You can see the Hong Kong version, it doesn't have the top modem here for the 5G millimeter wave antenna, but the US version has it. But the US version doesn't have these three extra 5G modems. So what I'm going to do is to modify the motherboard is by bringing it to service for doing a motherboard layer separation, because I want to swap the top layer of this both motherboard. So to prepare for service, I'm going to detach the camera from the Japanese motherboard. And then I'm going to swap. It's a little bit difficult. Okay, so that's how. And then I'll be using the Hong Kong version and the charging port version. You can see the difference between the Japanese and the Hong Kong version. You can see it has the extra 5G modems on the charging port board, unlike the Japanese version. So this version has the most 5G modems on the charging port. So you can see US, South Korea and Japan doesn't have. So this version 0 is the only one that has the most 5G modems. I'll go ahead and screw down. I'll go ahead and install all of them first. Alright, now I have installed everything. You can see the charger port with the Hong Kong version of charger port, the top speaker, the Hong Kong version of the top speaker, N2, and the motherboard. I'm using the Japanese motherboard. So I'll go ahead and put it cover, and it's time to go. I'll be right back. Alright, so this is what the modification process look like. I have two motherboards with Snapdragon processor. The shapes and the physics are exactly the same. Both of them are Snapdragon. One is the Japanese version and one is the Hong Kong version. So as you can see here, this is what the Hong Kong version look like. So as you can see here, the Hong Kong version has the extra 5G modems on the top and an extra 5G modems. These three small chipset is the extra 5G modems. And you can see here there's a black IC here. The US version doesn't have it, but the US version has all of these 5G modems, except this one black IC on the middle. The Hong Kong version doesn't have the socket for the 5G millimeter wave antenna, and maybe this the capacitor for the 5G millimeter wave antenna. and it also doesn't have the capacitor for the 5G millimeter wave antenna on the top. And this is the Japanese version. You can see the Japanese version doesn't have the 5G modems on the top. You can see not like the Hong Kong version, but the Japanese version does have the socket and the capacitor for the 5G millimeter wave antenna, and the capacitor on the top for the 5G millimeter wave antenna. So the process, I bring the motherboard to the service in World Trade Center. So you can see I asked them to separate the top layer of the motherboard, and you can see on the inside there's another black IC and one capacitor for the 5G millimeter wave antenna inside this Japanese motherboard, but the Hong Kong version doesn't have it. And but I asked the server to move the black IC and the capacitor from the Japanese version to the Hong Kong version, because it's the Hong Kong version, because it has the 5G modems, all of this. But I noticed something's odd, something's missing here. Same thing with the Japanese version, but this one only the US motherboard has it. I don't know what is this. The black ICs are missing inside, so maybe this is only available in US version, maybe because the US version is able to support eSIM, but the Hong Kong and the Japanese version does not support an eSIM, doesn't have an eSIM support. So you can see the Hong Kong version no eSIM support, the Japanese version no eSIM support. So I assume this is for the eSIM support, but the Hong Kong version does support a dual SIM. So maybe this missing so maybe this IC is the dual SIM slot, something like that. The Japanese version doesn't have it, so maybe it's for single SIM slot. I mean, the Japanese version doesn't have it, maybe because it only supports single SIM. The US for maybe this is the black IC for the eSIM and the dual SIM. So maybe that's how. The Canada version also doesn't have the black IC. Maybe this black IC is for the dual SIM slot. So after I asked the server to move the IC and the capacitor to the Hong Kong version for the 5G millimeter wave antenna, so you can see, and then I asked the server to install the Japanese top layer to the Hong Kong version, and then the Hong Kong top layer, you can see, place it to the Japanese motherboard. As you can see here, the shape of the top layer of the motherboard are exactly the same. The shapes are the same, but only different 5G millimeter wave antenna. And here is the final result. So you can see now the Hong Kong version not only has the complete 5G modems on the top, but also on the top layer of the motherboard you can see the full set of 5G. So that's what it looked like. This is the 512GB version of the motherboard. I'm using this motherboard as the daily driver, as a main device, the main motherboard for Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. Alright, so here's the final result. This is what the motherboard looks like after being modified. As you can see here, the top layer has been replaced with the Japanese version of the motherboard. It's exactly the same shape as the Hong Kong version. So you can see here, now I have the complete set all of the 5G modems, including the 5G millimeter wave antenna. Now the Hong Kong version of the motherboard is able to receive 5G millimeter wave speed of network. You can see here 5G millimeter wave, extra 5G modems here, these 3 extra 5G modems. The US version doesn't have it. And here it is, 5G millimeter wave antenna, the socket and the modems. The Hong Kong version doesn't have it. And here's the extra 5G modems, this one, and this one. The Japanese version doesn't, and also this one. The Japanese version doesn't have these top 5G modems. The US version has it, but not this IC. This IC for the 5G modem, the US version doesn't have it. So now this is the complete set of 5G networks of motherboard. Now let's place it back. For the Japanese version of the motherboard, it's still under repair due to power issue. So I left the motherboard at service. I left the motherboard for repair, so I bring this home. So I only bring the Hong Kong version back home. Now let's reassemble it. Before reassembling the phone, I forgot to show you. For the antenna cable, it's now been upgraded to 5G millimeter wave. Now there's extra component for the Hong Kong version of the motherboard after being modified. So now it's time to reinstall. So now it's time to reassemble the device. Now this is what it looks like. As you can see here, the charging port board has the 5G modems. Has the complete 5G modems. The US, Korea, and Japan doesn't have it. Even the Canada version. As you can see here, the motherboard, all full set of 5G, including the 5G millimeter wave antenna. So that's what it looks like, a modified motherboard with complete set of 5G. you can see here, and the phone has been reassembled, but the problem is the phone doesn't want to turn on. You can see the motherboard doesn't want to turn on after doing a separation of the layer. Even though the Hong Kong version and the Japanese version is exactly the same version, I mean the same shape of the motherboard, because they are both using Snapdragon processor. You can see remember the previous timestamp about the charging port. There's letter U and the 0. Letter U is USA and Canada, letter N is South Korea, letter D is Japan, and number 0 is Hong Kong, China, and Taiwan. And you can see the motherboard refused to power on due to power issue. And if you know what caused the motherboard doesn't want to turn on due to power issue, comment below. And thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you around.